feel like I'm meant for more. I feel like I'm not fully living up to my potential. I don't want to do a job that I've done over and over again. The job titles were the same, but I want to do it in a new way where I have people and I can help them with their performance and give them a stage and connect them. And for me, my joy job is I created a community called My Vibe, which is a conscious marketplace where we come together at the heart of reciprocity to really do business in the New Earth paradigm. And I think that that's a reality check in corporate that I think people have to really sit with, because when corporate isn't safe anymore, you could lose your job tomorrow. Another moment is when you're jealous of what somebody else does for a job. I think that's a big aha moment of like, God, I wish I had their job. Their job seems so much more fun than mine. That's a little lightning bolt moment. And then once you kind of have that one thing you want to grab onto, that's when you can start being like, okay, this is what I do. This is the audience I serve. This is the value that I provide. And then you figure out how to monetize it. And that's kind of the next step in the journey.
What if scaling your passion didn't require late nights, endless hustling, or feeling like you're selling your soul? Imagine a business that grows effortlessly. Today, we're diving into how Michelle Pecak, a master of strategy and heart-centered leadership, cracked the code of aligning purpose with profits. She's taken 20 years in supply chain, built quantum operations, and created a thriving ecosystem where people, process, products, and pricing all align to generate the quantum leap. If you're ready to learn how to build joy, let's jump in. Welcome, Michelle, and thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. There's so many things that we can talk about today. So I'm really excited to share my story.
Now, I love jumping right in, and you've been helping people move from survivor mode in their day jobs to thriving in what I call their joy jobs. Tell us a little bit about that and your formula.
Yes. So it was really interesting as I was transitioning out of corporate, and I kind of had this moment of like, I just don't want to do that anymore. It's not that it was bad. I just was like, I feel like I'm meant for more. I feel like I'm not fully living up to my potential. I don't want to do a job that I've done, over and over again. The job titles were the same. And then I really just kind of sat and it's been quite a journey of healing and reflection. And it really boiled down to what could I do that lights me up inside that I would do it for free, right? And then people were like, well, you host all these events and, you're always a master connector. Like, that's how I know you. And you're always doing all this fun stuff. And they were like, you should figure out how to monetize that. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to monetize that. That's what I do for fun, right? Like, I love doing that. I love hosting events and networking and book signings and just truly, I truly love to network. I'm like, well, how do you make money networking? Like, I don't know. Maybe I picked the wrong career. But then it was a moment of like, no, my first career was in that masculine energy, quantum operations, pricing and scaling. But how can I use that and do it in a way that I truly love? And how do I monetize connecting people and helping people? And then I kind of, when I first started talking about it, I'm like, well, pricing is my day job and I'm really good at it. But this is kind of what I do for fun in my joy job. And that was kind of how the formula was born, was like, I still need people, process, product, pricing, but I want to do it in a new way where I have people and I can help them with their performance and give them a stage and connect them. And then it just kind of came together. And for me, my joy job is I created a community called My Vibe, which is a conscious marketplace where we come together at the heart of reciprocity to really do business in the New Earth paradigm. And so it was just kind of me sitting there going, okay, I know I can scale companies, but what companies do I want to scale? And then on the formula side for the joy job, it was like, but I want to do something that lights me up inside, but also get paid. And you can see the pendulum, right? It kind of keeps going back and forth. And then I really just had to start figuring out, how do I build something where I can help everybody? I don't want to be competition. And then I kind of just started unpacking, like, I have to have a stage to do what I need to do. I have to figure out how the performance piece is. And then I really just created My Vibe. And then through there, I was like, well, how do I monetize it? And, then the layers of like, well, now I built a community. Okay, I got it. I figured out what my joy is and how to help others. But then it was really about unpacking the layers behind how to scale it, how to monetize it, and also how to balance it with, this is my day job. and my joy job, and there's still only one of me. It doesn't mean I want to be working two full-time jobs. So again, it was really just that balance and kind of building structure and a hierarchy around how do you do it and how do you monetize both? Because we live in a world where in corporate America, right, you have your paycheck that's tied to stability and it's also tied to your insurance. And those are two really big things that we need today. And so when you have those two things tied to a day job, it really makes it hard to shift to a joy job where, well, what if I did quit my day job? What do I do about insurance? And what if it takes me a while to find that sweet spot? And I honestly think when people are thinking that way, because that's how I was thinking, is like, I can't do what I love. I have to do what makes me money. I went, no, there's got to be a better way. And I think as I was unpacking all of that, it was saying, no, I think we actually do need to keep our day job. But then what can we do that lights us up inside? And maybe that could become our full-time job and be our day job, but maybe not. And I think that that's a reality check in corporate that I think people have to really sit with because when corporate isn't safe anymore, you could lose your job tomorrow. Maybe there's severance, maybe there's not. It's not as safe as it used to be. You have to have these backup plans. And if the joy job, let's say, takes you a few months to figure it all out, then you better start it now while you have your day job. And that was kind of a recipe of kind of how I unfolded it a little bit.
Yeah, I love the concept of joy job. And what would I do if money didn't matter? I know I hear a lot of times, Michelle, everybody's like, I feel so stuck in my life. I can't stay in. I don't, I need to go, but I can't go for exactly what you were just saying because of money, insurance. I'm the primary breadwinner. I can't possibly go do something I love, like, making clothes for a living because I have to pay my bills. And so, how how do people know when and if they're ready to make that shift? Like for you, what happened for you? Walk me through that.
Ready to lead smarter and invest wiser? On the Executive Connect podcast, we unpack executive strategies for wealth and influence. Hit the subscribe button now. Don't just watch, act.
Yeah. So good question. For me, I think it's a little different. And also why I want to share my learning moment is I was in transition. And so it was like, okay, when you get laid off, when you're in a position where you don't have a job, whether it's voluntary, involuntary, whatever it is, it was a moment of being like, okay, I'm in transition. What's next? And so for me, as I was applying to roles that really weren't lighting me up inside, I did have a little more capacity to be like, well, what could I do with this other time that keeps me lit up inside while I'm looking for the job that I really don't want, but I have to have it. So again, it's like that energy balance for me of like, I have to find a job, but I want my joy. So for me in transition, I think it's a perfect time to find a joy job because you have a little bit more capacity to do both. And I think you're also in a grieving period in your life where you're grieving the loss of an identity, a role, betrayal, whatever it is. Or even if you chose to leave and you quit that role because you hated it and it didn't light you up inside, you're still going to be going through a grieving process. So I think that one way of knowing you're ready is obviously if you find yourself without a job for whatever reason that is, then you're ready. Take the moment and think about what you want to do next. I also think, though, that if you have a day job, most women that I talk to, that I talk about my joy job workshop with, is they know, like you freaking know in your soul. You had this, like, oh, I don't want to go to work, or like, oh, I'm really. Another moment is when you're jealous of what somebody else does for a job. I think that's a big aha moment of like, God, I wish I had their job. Their job seems so much more fun than mine. That's a little lightning bolt moment. And there's also that moment where you just feel like unsatisfied, like you just feel the drudgery. You feel like, oh, I just don't want to solve one more problem that I've done for the 15th time. So when you start having those, like, I just don't want to go to work anymore feelings, that's one layer of it. But like I said, it's also that when you're jealous of someone else, or you just feel like, man, I really wish I could do something else. If I didn't have to make this paycheck, I would love to go and, whatever you see somebody doing that lights you up inside. In fact, do you ever have those moments when you're on vacation and you're like, God, what would it be like if I just lived where other people vacation? Right? We have those moments. And so I think it's those kind of moments when you're like, gosh, what would it be like if I didn't have to wake up and go to that job anymore? And it was actually a job that I really, really loved. And I think that our subconscious, our souls, being jealous of other people, I think all of those are just those moments of just knowing you're just not satisfied. It's like that kind of unsatiable awakening of like, I feel like I was meant for more. I remember when I was sitting at a retreat on the ocean and the company had asked me to write my next job description. And I wrote down on a piece of paper, I don't want to work this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, well, that's not a job description. But my soul knew, I knew that I did not want to do this anymore. And it wasn't, it doesn't have to be good or bad. Don't judge yourself for your thoughts because maybe you just don't want to do it anymore. You've lost that spark, or the problems that you used to solve aren't fun to solve anymore. So I think it's that spark, it's that inner soul knowledge. And honestly, I just think you know more than you think you do. If you take that moment of what do I love about my job, you'd probably come out with an answer pretty quickly.
Yeah, and one of the big words for me this year has been clarity, clarity in all things. And so I think a lot of times people want certainty and clarity on, okay, when should I jump? How should I jump? How much money do I? They need very specific black and white details to make that jump. So is there something that you can share with our listeners to make them feel better, and maybe an action item they can take to get clarity, whether it's their health, their wealth, their careers, or and anything they're looking for in their life?
Are you a high-income professional looking for smarter ways to protect your wealth? The Texas Freedom Fund gives you the opportunity to invest in energy assets leveraging proven fracking technology and prime access to global markets. With strategic oil and gas investments, you can build real wealth while benefiting from tax advantages under laws dating back to the Reagan era. Take control of your financial future. Visit texasfreedomfund.executiveconnectpodcast.com.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I would say, and this is kind of going back to where don't quit your day job, find your joy job, is you just got to start somewhere else. Okay, on the weekends, what would I do if I could do anything, right? Maybe it is, let's just say bake cookies. Let's just use that as an example. Okay, great. You're going to bake cookies. That brings you joy. What would it look like to monetize that? What would it look like to, to kind of grow that side of the business? And then you're like, no, that's not something I really love to do. And just start like unpacking, like if on the weekends or if I came home from work and I got to go do something I love. Maybe it's speaking to high school students, right? Or something like, okay, what do I love about that? Because when you leave an event or you leave something that you love to do, there's a whole different level of energy that you feel. Like, wow, I feel so helpful. I feel like I left empowering people. And if you have those moments, I'm not saying you're going to go speak to high school students as your toy job. I'm saying that feeling of helping others and being on a stage and sharing your superpowers, like all of a sudden, maybe you could host workshops on your superpowers, or maybe you actually really like speaking to audiences or helping them. And so it's really just finding those moments in your everyday life that you just don't want to stop doing what you're doing. If you're making dinner and you're just having this amazing time and you love cooking and you love sharing with your kids, oh, what if I did this for work? What would that look like? And just taking those everyday moments and kind of journeying through them to see what would it look like if this was part of my job. And some of them you cross off the list right away. Like, no, baking cookies, not what I would do for a living. I'm not a baker. But all of a sudden you find these little pockets of like, for example, I had somebody that like has a community of bird watching. And I was like, really? Okay. How did you come across that? And it was just every time they talked about bird watching, it lit them up inside and others wanted to hear and learn and grow. And then they started posting about it on YouTube or on, their socials, and they all of a sudden got attraction and they got an audience. And it's like then you start like just feeling alive. I think when you find that moment and you get that momentum, your mind kind of clears and you can be like, I'm really on to something here. So I think you have to take those moments of your day and explore. If you're like the best cookie snack mom of all times at your baseball game, what if you had a concession stand? I mean, it's taking those little fragmented moments and not worrying how it's going to turn into $1 million, just worrying about like, how could I scale this? How could I make this grow? And I think those are the moments. And then once you find that out, I think it's a journey. It's an inner journey of some of its healing of like, what would I do? Like, how would I heal and really light me up inside? Because Marissa Peer is somebody I love and follow. And she said once that what you love to do usually is between the ages of 7 and 14. So if you're in that time zone, go back to your 7 to 14-year-old self. What did you love to do? Maybe it was play baseball. Maybe it was, um, I don't know, crafts and arts, whatever that was. You will spark those moments. So I think it's figuring that out. But the reason you don't quit your day job is because you got to figure that out. That could be a 5, 6 month journey of like really figuring it out and peeling back those layers and figuring out what you would do for joy. And then once you kind of have that one thing you want to grab onto, that's when you can start being like, okay, this is what I do. This is the audience I serve. This is the value that I provide. And then you figure out how to monetize it. And that's kind of the next step in the journey. So I think the first one of why don't quit your day job is you got to find that thing that really does light you up inside, but that gives you that momentum. Because there's a shift when you get paid for something. Sometimes it loses the joy, right? Like maybe you love to wash your car on the weekends. That does not mean you want to wash cars for a living. That might bring you joy in the moment. That is not going to bring you joy in like a joy job. So it's kind of just finding those moments of life and then exploring and peeling back the onions what that looks like more.
There were so many great pieces and nuggets. I want to reiterate a couple of them. One was getting clear and trying it on, right? I think of
Yeah.
like choices like shoes, we try them on. And like you said, if, we bake the cookies, the idea of smelling sugar all day while we're baking, over time, it gets not to be as much fun, and it's probably the wrong thing. But I think what you were saying is so spot on is journaling and figuring out like what am I good at? What do I like to do? And then trying the shoe on and then testing it. Cause a lot of times I find, going back to the cookie analogy, Melissa's Cookies and Snacks, that's how she started. And it's a very well-known brand in across the United States. And she started just by baking unique tie-dyed products for her kids. And her business is monumentous now. And so I think when you find that joy job, like you were saying, the right people come into place. Things like you were saying, you'll get more followings. People will start to pay attention. Things just like the puzzle pieces all just start to align when you're really clear about who you are and what you want. The next thing comes. And so I want to talk a little bit and kind of pull that back about your vibe formula. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So when I created my vibe community, it was going, oh my gosh, this is what I do. I bring people together and I do this and I build a better system. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I teach other people how to find their joy? And then I realized that this is where my day job comes in. Operationally, I know how to teach you how to walk through the basic steps of like, okay, you found your joy, but can you monetize your joy? Right. And so for me, I teach a course called the Joy Job Workshop, and it's free because I want you to just walk through the steps. Right. And so for me, it's about unpacking the formula of saying, okay, like, for example, in my vibe, it's about the people, performance, the programming, and then also having partnerships. And so for me, that's a big secret success of how my vibe, comes together and has the secret formula. But as you're monetizing your joy job, you have to kind of know what your offering is. And I think so between like knowing the value you offer and then like grouping it again operationally, we got to get a little in the tactical piece here of like what items do you offer for free? That's your free advice, your sessions, your videos, your whatever it is on your socials. That's something you might give away for free and you attract the audience to you, right? And then you might have something that you have to be, it's like a low ticket price, maybe under $100. And then you work your way up. What could I charge 500 for? What could I charge 1,000? What could I charge 5 to 10,000? And then you get to VIP and it's like 10,000 and up and you're like, whoa, who would pay me $10,000 for anything? And you have these moments of like, well, you can't think that now because you're really trying to build out what that offering is. So it's like just start where it fits in. And that's why I have a workbook of like in my day job, it's B2B consulting, right? On the pricing side. So it's people, process, product pricing. It's very scaling companies, but they're billion-dollar companies. I only have a high ticket item really because it's like retainer for my consulting job, right? I don't have a lot of low ticket or free ticket items other than sharing my knowledge, let's say in my socials about what pricing is or my YouTube channel. Okay, fine. But those aren't pieces that you monetize. So the day job is more about, okay, day job, think of that as like your high ticket, paying the bills, right? And so then when you look at your joy job, you got to think about it a little differently. You say, what are my low ticket, free, mid, and high ticket? And maybe you only know one or the other. Maybe you're like, well, I host really, really great retreats. That'll be my joy job. And then I'm like, okay, honey, let's unpack that for a minute because retreats make zero money. I'm not sure who told you that, but if you're starting out, I should clarify. Once you have a following and you have repeat customers, you absolutely can grow and make a lot of money on retreats. But when you're like first getting started, there's a lot of cost behind something like that. So even though it's a high ticket price tag, you don't make money on it. So there's those clarification layers in unpacking your joy job of what are you going to make money doing? Because you could travel to a conference, right? And pay, let's say $2,000 for the ticket. But if you don't make $2,000 at that event, that's a cost of going to that, right? And so you treat something like that as I'm making an investment to go to this conference or this place, but I'm going to have a low ticket item to offer or a free item, or I want somebody to follow me on this. So when you're doing those kind of things, that's when you start to building that following, that momentum, that thought leadership. And again, you have to kind of figure out what that is, like what your joy job is. And then when you start talking about it with those low ticket things, then you start building that momentum. And then I found as you kind of bring people along the journey, you show them your thought leadership, you show them what you're doing, there's different tiers, and that's how you start to monetize it. So maybe your tier is you have a workshop that you give that people will pay you $5,000 for. Great. And how many times a year do you host it, right? That's all kind of, I call it the joy math. That's how you scale it. But at the beginning, you may only have free items to give away. And so in that case, maybe you build a community that starts building the following. And within that, you build your people, and then you can start charging for things. So I think everybody has a really different way of finding and monetizing their joy job because we all have different values and different superpowers. And one thing I think that people really take for granted is your superpowers are things that come so naturally to you and not to other people. And that was a big piece of me finding my joy is when I said, I host events and all these things, people were like, Michelle, you're a master connector. And I kind of went, what? That's not a skill. Like that, I just do that. I mean, I just host an event on a Tuesday and 70 people show up. Why is that so hard? I have that Elle Woods moment of like, what? Like it's hard? And not in an arrogant way, in a genuinely like, oh my God, that others can't do that? Like, how many things do we take for granted that come so naturally to us? Like, oh yeah, I'm going to build your pricing model from this and we'll have it done and we'll do this. Or in business, here's your go-to-market strategy and 3 easy steps and here's your KPIs. And I'm spouting out words to just say, when something comes to you so naturally, you don't even realize that people aren't following your genius because you just spout out things that others really would value to be taught. And so I think that there's those moments when you slow down and you can say, actually, people do want to pick my brain. What do they want to pick your brain about? Right? Sometimes for when I was first having a mom, people wanted to pick my brain about how to sleep train a kid. Well, I wasn't a sleep training professional, but people came to me all the time for that. So I think in different phases of your life, people come to you for different things. And I think that's how you kind of unpeel the layers of your joy job is it's going to look different for everybody. It's going to be a different journey. But when it's something that comes so naturally to you, it's like your purpose for being on this earth, you will magnetize things that you didn't even see coming. And I think that's why I say don't have it fully baked. You don't have to have the idea fully baked. You don't even always have to know fully what it is, but you have to start exploring and playing. And then the workbook guides you through different ways of figuring out how to monetize it. Because there's going to be a lot of things that fail. In fact, true story, the first Joy Job workshop I had, 2 people showed. And I was like, oh, I thought more people were going to show up to this. And then all of a sudden I had 40 people asking me for the recording and people being like, when are you doing the next one? I'm like, well, you didn't show up to the first one. How was I supposed to know? Like here I thought live was the thing. No one, 2 people showed. And then all of a sudden it built momentum and now there's a recording and now people want to know when my next one live is. Well, guess what? I might charge for that one now because the recording is free, but you see what I'm saying? You kind of unpack it where you think you know what it's going to be. And then all of a sudden the momentum kind of picks up in a different way. And I think that's to me the beauty of just start playing, just start figuring it out. And when you start having a lot of momentum, you'll know that you have an audience that's willing to pay you for that expertise.
Yeah, I love it. The 4 Ps: people, performance, partner, and programming. And you're really spot on, Michelle. I think a lot of times you could be the best widget maker in the whole world, but attracting and getting clients that want to buy your widget is really hard for some people and easier for other people. And so, like you said, you just got to go at it and start doing it, and the pieces all come into place. And I know one of the things I see a lot online, kind of what you were saying a little bit, is positioning yourself as the go-to expert in whatever your joy job is. So I want to talk a little bit about whatever that joy job is. How can one best position themselves to get clients, to perform, to partner, and all the P's? Is there a secret sauce to that?
Okay, I love that question, and I'm gonna answer it in a way you probably don't expect, is honestly, I think that I created my vibe to be that place where it all comes together, because I do think that a lot of the people and the programming, I think everybody was doing it in silos, and I think everybody's trying to support each other in this big, 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 big ocean, and we couldn't find each other. It was getting lost. Even though we all have these blue ocean ideas where we're so unique, it was literally getting lost. And so a lot of it is like, I was posting all the time about events or things on social. And by the time somebody saw it, it was over. Like, oh, I totally would have signed up for that if I had seen it. And so a lot of it boiled down to the timing of things because I think sometimes you create your own luck and momentum by the energetics that you bring into your life. And so you could be posting the best content, have the best widget, and have the best content. And you're like, why is nobody finding me? Why is nobody seeing me? And I think that that's really frustrating. And in a joy job, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm wrong. No one wants me for my joy. And it can be really dehumanizing or just kind of disheartening of like, nobody likes me. Nobody showed up, right? But it's timing and it's visibility. And I think that's where, to me, we need to pool our resources. Because when you have people that are rooting for you and you're in a community where people are amplifying each other and giving each other referrals and connections, all of a sudden the audience piece kind of solves itself. I know it sounds really cliche, but people were always asking me, like, how do you help people sell out their retreats in 4 days or their workshops in a week? I'm like, I don't know. They call me and ask me my opinion about it, and I think it's awesome, and I tell them and then they buy it. I don't know. Like, and it was just kind of that moment of like boiling it down to it is about who you know and talking to people you trust and timing. So it's not that you can have the best marketing strategy and blast it everywhere and hire this incredible firm to do this for you. But at the end of the day, it's about people and trust and timing. And I think to me, a lot of that comes down to kind of what I created in my vibe is like, have a stage to talk about what you want. And whether that's social media or something else, I think you have to get on socials and talk about your superpowers. And I don't necessarily mean like a social post, like a 5-minute video. I mean like a 1 hour course. Like I call it social selling in my vibe, where I have a free series and they all have a different vibe and flavor and theme. And let's say that you have a product to sell. You could come on the product showcase. Or if you are the best go-to-market strategy person, you can go on the business blueprint and think of it as like an internal TV channel, right? You have your TV show, you're clicking the button, and all of a sudden, you're like, ooh, this guy looks interesting. What's he talking about? Oh, interesting. He's talking about how to build a sales funnel. I have never done that well. I am going to listen, right? And so you join these events, you listen to it in a it's like they're just sharing their education and their knowledge with you. That's social selling. And then at the end, if you're like, wow, thanks, Mr. Person. I really like what you gave me. Can I work with you again? I really want to work with you. Or you take what they gave you, what you learned in that, let's say, little TV show, and then you can go apply it to your life. Again, thank you, for that education. And it's also just about that, like when someone gives you information and you can't help them, but who can you refer them to? Or maybe they need to be on a podcast that you could make a reference for, right? And so to me, it's about reciprocity. Someone comes up and shows up to share their superpowers, And then they need to know how to ask for what they need in return. So that's to me what social selling is all about is reciprocity. I am here giving my audience something for free. That's your low ticket free item, right? Depending on what it is. And then if they want to work with you more, here's the gate, the financial gate behind how to do that. Whether it's a community, a workshop, a course, whatever it may be, your people will start asking you for things they need. And sometimes you're like, sure, I guess I'll teach a class on that if so many people are interested. And you just sort of naturally figure that out. And I don't think it can be pre-scripted, but I do think that it's about that recipe of like having that social selling aspect, having the right partners to amplify and to kind of lift you up. And then it's about having the right platforms to put your information on to attract the right audience. And I don't remember if I went through all it people, performance, partner, and programming. But I do think it's a lot about play. I'll add another P. You just have to play and figure it out. And I think all those pieces then start falling into place. And, let's say you take the Joy Job course and then 6 months later, you're like, Michelle, I would never have thought this. But guess what? I got picked up on a TV show, right? Or I have my own YouTube channel. Girl, I never thought that people would actually care what I had to say. But you don't start with the YouTube channel and then be disappointed no one watches it, right? You kind of back into it by finding your audience and the format that you want to interact with them on. And I think that that's a journey. And I think that that's kind of the formula of all the P's is putting that all together.
Yeah, and I think it's knowing what you're offering too, the value of it. I've seen trainings that are, $50, $20, and I've seen trainings that are $20,000 and more. And so I think it's clarity, like you were mentioning, clear of what you're offering and knowing what your value is. And if your seminars are, like you said, 5 grand, knowing and sharing the value you're providing to people for and being confident in what you're delivering and having a track record. Well, yes, it is 5 grand, but you're getting this and this is what you should come out. These are the deliverables. And so you're not really feeling salesy, you're feeling confident of what you're selling. And one thing you touched on a little bit, I want to dive deeper into is collaboration. You mentioned a little bit about people call you to collaborate. I love that you said that because I'm a big believer that collaboration beats competition any day of the week, and sharing in that joy with your peers is wonderful. So can we talk a little bit about that when it comes to scaling?
Yeah. I mean, I just really don't believe in competition. I believe we're stronger together. And I think we all have superpowers and resources that are truly better together. So, for example, I'll give an example of when I first started hosting a lot of my book signings that I host, I would bring in 3 or 4 authors together, whether it was a panel or a chat or an event where they each got a segment. And truly, people thought I was a little nuts. So, like, isn't this their book signing or isn't this theirs? And I'm like, you don't understand, guys. People don't come and say, I like your book and I like your book. No, no, no. They buy all 4 books because they see the author. They met you. They like you. I mean, I literally was like, oh, I have to have a whole 7 book package. Like I didn't realize you just have to make it easy for people to show up. And so I think sometimes collaborations is, I call it your Opa moment, your other people's audiences. You're combining each other's audiences. So anytime you collaborate, whether it's somebody that does something similar to you, you're still combining the 2 audiences. And or if it's something completely different, right? You have 2 different books or an author and a operations expert talking about things. They both have different perspectives. And so I think that collaboration is really just finding people that amplify and ramp up each other and whose audiences have value for each other. Right. So whether it's, hey, you know what? I'd like to have you on my podcast because I think my audience would really love your message. Well, the message of that person doesn't mean that they have to be a certain job description to be on that podcast. It's, I think your message will resonate. Right. And so same things with any collaboration. I think when you get people together, it's going to be a fun conversation. It's going to be something where there's going to be a give and a get. And sometimes they're just complementary services, right? Like, hey, I'm operations and they're go to market. Between the 2 of us, you can't go wrong. We're both going to share top down, bottom up, right? You can spin it however you want, but it's filling in the gaps. So for example, in the Joy Job, I'll teach you how to monetize it, right? and how to build your pricing structure, but I am not going to teach you the legal stuff. I know nothing about the legal. I am going to give you my friend over here. She is the legal person. So collaborations can be complementary of services as well. And so it's saying like, hey, I can't serve you in this, but here's my friend that can. And so why not just collaborate up front and do something dual together? Or whether the collaboration is an article together from two perspectives. Whatever it is, I think it's just beautiful to have different perspectives. And I mean, not to sound cliche, but everybody has their own different vibe. And so, like, for example, I have a series on my vibe called Human Design, because human design is an awareness tool for your kind of the gifts you were given by the universe, right? And I think it's very powerful to learn about your human design blueprint. But I'll have 15 different people that are experts in that, all giving different segments. And some of them we bring in together because they're like, well, when I see this in a chart, this is what it means to me. Well, when I see it, this is what I give advice on for my coaching clients. And it's just so fun to see how people use the same information and the same tools in very different ways. Just one example. And so for me, it's not about competition. Like, oh, would you like to give me exclusive rights to be your only person that talks about this? I'm like, no, actually, I'm not. Not to be disloyal, but the loyalty is that I want my consumer to connect to their attracted to the right client. Your ideal client, like, trust me, there are plenty of clients out there that you're like, yes, assholes, you go down to the left. I only want to work with people in the nice zone. Like, you guys go over here. And I think that, not to say they're always assholes, but you can have these moments of like, yeah, you're not my vibe. You are not my ideal client. And I think that when you have the abundance mindset that some people are just not for you, you can send them or refer them to somebody else who might be a better vibe fit for them. And it's not even just saying like, and maybe I'll take the asshole comment away. Like, maybe it's just not your vibe. They're very aggressive. They're very forceful. You just, something doesn't feel right about that client. But you know, your friend is very good with those type of clients. She is like, do, I can totally handle that. So then make a referral, right? And so even when you're in the same space, referring clients that are not your vibe, I truly just think everybody wins when you believe in collaboration over competition, even when you're in exactly the same space. You know, I truly believe in that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's if you believe in abundance and there's enough for everyone, I think the right things come in, and showing up in relationships that way is really key. I love that you mentioned that. I want to kind of in closing get any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered today.
Hmm. I would say my final thought is, don't just permission to be curious. Permission to be curious about what else is out there. It's not disloyal. It's loyal to yourself. And I think sometimes self-love is the thing that we're disloyal to the most, is what really lights me up inside, and not being afraid to explore what that is, because you don't have to jump off the deep end and quit your job and all of that. You can find a way to do both. And maybe that cutting back on something in your day job and finding a little bit more of a balance is actually going to make you better at both. You're actually going to be better at your day job if you don't resent it for feeling handcuffed to it. And so I think permission to be curious and explore what brings you joy, and just don't make any rash decisions, because I think that when you truly start that joy abundance mindset and you find what lights you up inside, the path will become clearer than you can ever imagine it to be right now.
Yeah, that's great. Michelle, thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey, sharing your knowledge. Find her, download myvibecommunity.com to explore the free Joy Job course and join the community. That's the Executive Connect podcast. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm encouraged to see what everyone's joy job ends up being. I would love to hear about them.